There was absolutely no effort made to do any type of social distancing. My server was just so close to me and she didn't have a mask on, and I was like, On the 4th of July, the UK government let pubs and restaurants and bars reopen for the first time in months since they instituted the lockdown, with social distancing measures in place. But obviously this was huge news for the UK. Thankfully, the UK has pretty much contained the virus, so most people feel like it's safe enough to start opening things. However, everyone of course has a different level of comfort in terms of opening themselves back up to other people and to the rest of the world. Personally, I was super ready to go to restaurants, but I think I'm gonna still hold off on some pubs because I just don't really trust the general public to properly socially distance themselves away from me once they've had a few drinks. So I'm just gonna hold off from there for a bit. Also, of course, not every bar and pub and restaurant opened on the 4th. Because of the social distancing measures that have to be put in place, pretty much every place is going to have a significantly reduced capacity. So for a lot of places, especially in London where capacity is already like stretched really far because these places have such small spaces and high rents where they try to cram people in, a lot of these places, if they have a reduced capacity even just by a few percentages, it is not viable for them to reopen. So not every place is reopened, of course. So I thought that I would take you along with me for a few of my first restaurant experiences and show you what it's been like going back to some of the great places that you can eat and drink while in London. I do just want to note before you go into the comments and start angry typing about how we've reopened too early and people aren't wearing masks and blah, 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 please remember that just because things are being dealt with in your country a certain way doesn't mean that it's the same in every other country. The UK luckily has a pretty low amount of cases now, so they're starting to reopen because it's deemed to hopefully be safe. But also every country is treating things like masks quite differently because the evidence can be a little bit whatever. I don't really need to go into that. Just remember that every place is treating this differently. Watch this video just as like a curiosity to see what's been happening here in London. So please just try to limit the criticisms to 0. Maybe just keep things in your head. I don't know. This is probably gonna make things worse. Here we go. Oh God. I was absolutely ready to have a meal that was not cooked by me or was not delivered to my front door. So I didn't go anywhere the day that things reopened on the 4th, but I did book in for a lunch on the 5th. And I decided to go to one of my favorite restaurants in London called Barduro. Barduro is part of Flatiron Square, and it is a Portuguese restaurant that does small plates, and their dishes are simple, they're not overdone, but the flavors are always really good. It's also very affordable. They've got a great wine list full of really good Portuguese wines. And I decided to book in here because I wanted to eat here first of all, but I knew they were gonna be utilizing the outdoor space that they have. It's also quite a small operation, so I wasn't gonna be like overwhelmed with people. Also, this place is so beautifully decorated on the inside. They've really taken the Portuguese blue tile thing and gone crazy with it. And usually most of the seating is at the bar, so it's quite like, I don't know if communal is the right word, but it's definitely a fun way to eat with 1 or 2 other people when you're sat at the bar. But we were able to book outdoor seating. Finally, if you have the 3-day itinerary, Barduro is included in day 1, so you can visit it when you come to London. Okay, so as soon as I walked up to Barduro, they had a sign that was talking about what kind of measures they had in place. You could see that all the outside tables were very spaced out. You pretty much had to have a booking to be able to sit, but they did have a couple of walk-ins. They would seat them in empty spots, but everyone has to fill out their contact form for the track and trace for the UK. Sitting down and being served food, being given my utensils, being brought a drink. I have never been so happy to do that in my entire life. It was such a lovely feeling, and the staff were so happy to have people back and to be back in work, and it was a beautiful day. It was such a lovely experience, and in this instance I also felt very safe, so it just made it such a great first meal back. I personally ordered heirloom tomatoes and I got courgette with a special kind of mint sauce and some roasted potatoes. The food was just so nice and summery. Like I said, they have a great wine list here, but I really wanted somebody to make me a cocktail. So I ordered one of their special gin and tonics, which is made with, yes, I had to look at it, Churchill's White Port, which is from the Douro Valley, and that was so nice to have a proper cocktail. Oh, so good. Okay, then once I finished lunch, my guests and I went to Vinegar Yard, which if you watched my last video, you saw that I had already been to Vinegar Yard, but this was the first time I was going where we were allowed to actually eat and drink there. So everybody who went into Vinegar Yard had to just download a free ticket that essentially like they just needed your information for track and trace. So you just had to download a free ticket and then they would scan it, and then you'd hand sanitize when you went in, and then you're free to find yourself a table, and they had restrictions on how many people could be on a table and how close you could sit. They were very good at keeping their staff safe and also trying to keep everybody apart, and luckily it was such a beautiful day out, so it was pretty easy for everyone to space out and sit in the sun and feel like they were still having a really nice time. And this was the first time that I had a Pimm's, which if you don't know what a Pimm's is, having a Pimm's cup is like such a British summertime thing. You go to a pub garden, you order a Pimm's cup, which is a cocktail made with Pimm's, which is just Pimm's. It's not like a special type of spirit, it's just Pimm's, and it's got fruit in it and lemonade mixed in. It's just so nice and summery. So it was the first time that I got to have it, and it was so nice to be sitting in the sun having my first Pimm's of the summer. A little late, but better late than never, I guess. So that was it for that weekend. And then the next weekend, I was house sitting in Notting Hill. So I booked in for a restaurant called Yuli. It's a restaurant that is right in Notting Hill, and it serves a mix of Asian food, and the interiors looked really beautiful. I had gotten a recommendation off of her friend saying that she had never eaten in the restaurant, but they actually got the food for takeaway all the time and they loved it. All the reviews were really good, so I booked in to go there. Now the food was very good. I ordered dumplings, vegetable gyoza, and I had this really nice like simple asparagus dish. I also got a really lovely I also got a really lovely cocktail called the Asian Negroni, and that was like perfect because it was nice and warm, or the drink wasn't warm. It was warm outside, and it was a nice summery drink to have. My guest that was with me thought his food was fantastic as well. I was really disappointed, however, with the fact that there was absolutely no effort made to do any type of social distancing. It was a stark difference from any of the other places, even like cafes and the members club that I'm a part of. All these other places did really well at spacing tables out, making sure staff stayed, if they didn't have a mask on, they would actually at least like didn't get too close to you. Yuli didn't make any effort at all to do any type of social distancing. Everything was, I presume, exactly as it had been before lockdown started. Granted, the majority of the restaurant feels a bit like it's like outside because they have all these big windows open, but there's just a couple of points where my server was just like so close to me while she was speaking and she didn't have a mask on. And I was like, So that was really disappointing, and I did leave some feedback on my open table review this morning when I wrote it. So the next morning, I needed to go to Westbourne Grove because I had to stop into Dalesford, which is this like really beautiful food and homeware shop. So I needed to get a couple of things from there. And then I wanted to have breakfast. So I popped into Chuck's for breakfast, which again is on Westbourne Grove. Talk about having like such a stark difference from my night before. Chuck's had not one other person in it. It was so quiet. I mean, granted it was 8:30 on a Saturday morning in Notting Hill, so it wasn't very crowded in the area at all, but apparently that place isn't really known for their breakfast either. However, I've had their granola there a couple of times, including that day, and it's always been really nice. And my guests had the porridge, which was really good, and a really nice egg dish, but not one other diner came in while we were in there, which was actually kind of nice after we dealt with everything the night before. But they still also had tables that had signs on them that you couldn't sit at them because of social distancing. So it just kind of showed me like, okay, like this is the effort that restaurants are supposed to be making, and I feel like way more comfortable when things are a bit more spaced out and there's actually just like an effort being put in. So yeah, that was a really nice breakfast, and there's a few other locations I think of Chuck's, not just Westbourne Grove. It's a nice little place for a bit of lunch or breakfast or anything like that where you're in the area. As I'm recording this, the UK government had just announced a few days ago that they're gonna be opening up more things around the country. So nail salons are gonna open, indoor pools and outdoor pools, gyms. Oh, yes, gyms, can't wait. Those will be opening in a couple of weeks. So that's really exciting. I don't know if that's as exciting to like film for you guys as the eating out, but I will try to capture things as much as possible. And if you want to see more of like my day-to-day around London, make sure that you're following the Love in London account on Instagram, because that's where I'm kind of showing that kind of stuff more than in these videos. And if you're curious about like quarantining in London and all this stuff, then you should watch the video that I posted a couple weeks ago. You can watch that by clicking the box that's popping up right below me. Thank you so much for watching, and stay well and stay safe.